We're outside today. Just rained, so that's perfect. Clearing out the spot. Got some more great content coming up for you. Let me get my stuff. It's just some stuff we're going to be using. Hi, I'm Maddie. Today we're making paper. Today I'm going to teach you how to make recycled paper at home. We all have stacks of paper in our living spaces that we're never really sure what to do with. Well, you don't have to feel bad about throwing it away, and with just these few scraps, I'm going to teach you how to make beautiful artistic paper that can be used for many projects. Okay, if you want to make paper from home, you're only going to need a couple of things. And a lot of these things are things you can find just kind of laying around your house. You're going to need some scissors, a plastic bin, it could be big or small depending on how big you want your paper to be, some towels, I'd actually recommend an old bed sheet for this, some screen, you can find it at any hardware store, or I just asked my dad and he just had this in the garage, and he gave it to me. An old wooden picture frame, maybe it has some of your old high school artwork in it, a staple gun, your recycled paper, and this is optional, but some fun stuff, like maybe some colored tissue paper and some thread. Oh, yeah, a blender. Okay, now that you know what you're gonna need to make paper at home, first you gotta make your tools. Okay, to make paper, you're gonna have to make your own tools to do it. What we're gonna be making is called a paper mold. A paper mold is a frame with a screen stretched over top of it. This is going to be used to scoop up the paper pulp and create your sheets of paper. I'm laying the screen on top of the wooden frame and stretching it over top of it. Now you're going to take your staple gun and staple the screen to the frame all the way around. Make sure you're doing this on the flat side of the frame. Basically, the size of the frame is going to be the size of your paper. I wanted to make some bigger paper, so I just found this old painting I did in high school and I'm tearing it apart because I just want to use the frame for it. Now I'm just doing the same thing, putting the screen over top of the frame and cutting it out. Again, I'm stretching the screen over top of the frame, similarly as you would if you were stretching a canvas, if you know how to do that. Don't worry about the screen being too tight, you just want the screen to be secured to the frame. Because my picture frame wasn't flat on both sides, I couldn't wrap the screen around the frame. So I'm just going to take some duct tape and fold those edges of the screen over, just so they don't get in the way. Alright, here are your paper molds. Super easy to make. Okay, now that we've made our mold and decal, we're going to go inside and start blending our paper pulp. Wait, let's set up our station first. I'm using some old beach towels for this, but I would recommend using an old bed sheet. Bed sheets don't soak up as much water as towels do, and the drying time for your paper will be a lot faster. Alright, now we're ready to start making our paper pulp. So I have my blender here, which is filled pretty much halfway full with water, and I'm just going to fill it the other halfway with my paper shreds. Okay, when I said fill the other half, I mean equal parts. Equal parts water to paper. Bug is not gonna like when I turn this thing on. Where's the lid? Where's the lid? I took the lid out. Oh, here it is. The lid. Found the lid. Alright, let's turn it on. I think I'm going to add a little bit more water. Bug! Alright, so this is the kind of paper consistency you want. It's really soft and mushy and gross, but it actually feels really good when you put your hands in it. Just like this. You can still see some of the paper shreds in there, but That's going to give the paper we're making a really nice and interesting texture. So you're going to want to take your paper pulp and just dump it into that plastic container. If you only want to make a couple sheets of paper, you probably won't need that much paper pulp. This is plastic. I'm planning on making a lot of paper today, so I'm going to make a couple more batches of paper pulp. Okay, check this out. In my bucket, I have all of my paper pulp, and it feels really soft. As you can see, there are flecks of different colored paper in my mix. This will show up in your paper. If you want your paper to be colored, this is when you would add a little bit of food coloring and mix it up. At this point, you're going to want to add a lot of water to this. However much paper pulp is in your bucket, you're going to want to double that with water. One more. Yeah, after those 2 cups of water, I decided I needed a lot more. So this is the consistency you want. As you can see, the pulp is free floating in the water, and when I stick my hands in the water and lift it up, I'm not lifting up big globs of pulp. To make the paper, you're going to take your paper making device called the mold, or the decal, one of those 2 things. The mold is what we made. The decal is another frame that fits on top of the mold to make the edges of your paper straight. I don't really remember which. And you're going to place...
Hello?
You're going to place...
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Okay. You're going to place the... Should I just maybe... Yeah, let's just stick with the voiceover. I'm putting the mold in with the screen facing towards me, putting the frame all the way down to the bottom of the bucket and slowly lifting it with the pulp facing the sky. Then I'm just taking my finger and kind of wiping the excess pulp off the edges of the mold. Here, I'm pressing my hand against the paper pulp to squeeze out some excess water. I did not do this for every single piece of paper. Now we're going to transfer your sheet of paper to your towel. Say a prayer and flip it. Once your mold is face down on the towel, I'm going to press my hand into the screen to make sure that the pulp sticks to the towel and not the mold. Now I'm slowly going to lift up from one corner of the frame to the other, and the mold should easily lift off the towel. And there's your paper. At this point, you do not want to touch it, and you want to make sure that there are no wrinkles in your towels. This will take 24 hours of drying time before you can handle it. Alright, let's make a bigger one. Let's play around with some decorative elements. So right now I'm adding some orange tissue paper in. So when I dip in my little mold, it's going to pick up this orange paper and make like an interesting little design on your paper. So right now I'm cutting up some newspaper. Cutting it like an onion almost because I want to get a little bit of the text in the paper. So I'm cutting it up sideways like this, and then I'm going to cut it this way into the water. And what's going to happen is I'm going to get all these little pieces of paper that have text on it, and that's going to show up in our paper. Now you're not really going to see the text until tomorrow when the paper is dry and we lift it up off the towels, but that'll be a surprise for that. Okay, so I found this is just regular thread you'd use for like a sewing machine. I'm just going to cut some pieces into the water and see how that works. As you continue to make your paper, you'll notice that you'll start going through your pulp. It will become harder and harder to get your paper to be the thickness that you want. So when you can't get a good piece of paper out of the pulp that you have, strain your water into the sink, throw away the excess paper pulp, and you'll be done. Alright, now that I've made a bunch of paper, I'm going to let these sit overnight, and it's best to leave them outside so they can sit in the sun, but I heard it was going to rain tonight, so I moved them indoors. Okay, so I woke up this morning and my paper was a little wet when I checked on it, so I moved the towels out into the sun for about 2 hours, and they're pretty much ready to be pulled off. They're still a little bit damp, but I didn't want them to stick to the towels, so I'm going to pull them off right now. Now it's still damp, so I don't want it to tear, so I'm just carefully lifting up the paper on the edges, and then I'm slowly going to lift it, and it's all just going to come off in one piece. Again, it's still wet. Ooh, check that one out. You can really see the tissue paper and the newspaper, and if you look really closely, even on the back here, you can see all the little flecks of paper we used from the shredder. So I'm just going to put this on that hot asphalt here in the sun, and it's going to dry up really fast. So now we're going to wait a little bit more until our paper is fully dry. And here's my finished stack of paper. I noticed that overall the smaller sizes actually worked out a lot better. It's much easier to control the thickness of the paper when it's smaller, and it seemed like that they dried a lot quicker as well. Alright, so my paper's dry, so I'm going to test some things out on it. I'm just taking this really messed up piece of paper and with my scissors cutting them into nicer shapes. This handmade paper is really nice, so you want to use every single piece that you can. I noticed that pen works really well on this paper. Charcoal sticks great, but a sharp mechanical pencil doesn't leave enough pigment to really make a mark. Although it is great for sketching. I'm going to test out some watercolor here. I would not recommend using watercolor on this paper, especially with inks. This ink is waterproof and you can still see that it bled. That's because the paper is so soft it's like a sponge. It's almost impossible to spread the pigment around. My favorite use of handmade paper is for collaging, which is creating artwork with cut pieces of paper. Here, I'm just cutting out a star, writing my initials on it, and sticking it inside this brand new sketchbook that I got. Well, I hope you learned something new, and if you try it out, let me know. Follow me on Instagram at artclublessons, all one word, and tag me in your work with hashtag artclublessons. If you like this video, please subscribe. Well, thanks for watching. See you next time.